Have you ever noticed how the simple phrase, "I'm fine," can keep you stuck in the same place year after year, while others seem to attract abundance effortlessly? What if I told you that according to ancient Jewish wisdom, the words you speak every single day are either opening the floodgates of prosperity or quietly closing them shut? There's a secret hidden in the teachings of the Torah, the Talmud, and Kabbalah that successful people have used for thousands of years. It's not about working harder. It's not about luck. It's about understanding something so powerful yet so simple that most people completely overlook it. The words we choose don't just describe our reality. They create it. Think about it. When someone asks you how you're doing, what do you say? Most people automatically respond with, "I'm fine" or "I'm okay." These words seem harmless, even polite. But here's what the ancient sages understood, that modern psychology is only now beginning to confirm. When you say, "I'm fine," you're declaring to the universe, to God, and to your own subconscious mind that you are merely adequate, just getting by, barely making it through. And here's the problem. The universe responds to your declarations. In Kabbalah, there's a concept called Shefa, which means the flow of divine abundance. It's not just money or material wealth. Shefa represents the continuous stream of goodness, blessing, and prosperity that flows from the Creator to all of creation. But here's the crucial part. This flow doesn't force itself upon you. You have to create a vessel to receive it. And your words, your thoughts, your consciousness, these are the building blocks of that vessel. The ancient Kabbalists taught that like attracts like. This principle is called affinity of form. When you operate from a consciousness of abundance, feeling grateful and blessed, you create a powerful magnet that attracts more blessings into your life. But when you operate from a consciousness of lack, saying things like, "I'm just fine" or "I'm managing," you're actually repelling the very abundance you're seeking. Let me share something that might surprise you. The Torah tells us that one of the reasons the Israelites wandered in the desert for 40 years wasn't just about geography. It was about mindset. Numbers chapter 14 records how their constant complaining, their focus on what they lacked rather than what they had, actually delayed their entry into the promised land. Their words created their reality, and Deuteronomy makes this even more explicit. Moses warns the people that if they fail to serve God joyfully and gladly in times of abundance, they will experience poverty and lack. Think about that. The failure to experience and express gratitude during good times is identified as a direct cause of future hardship. So what should you say instead of "I'm fine"? The Jewish tradition offers us a profound alternative. Instead of diminishing your state with mediocre language, the sages teach us to speak words of blessing and gratitude. When someone asks how you are, try responding with, "I'm blessed" or "I'm grateful." Even better, be specific. "I'm grateful for my health today. I'm blessed to have meaningful work. I'm thankful for the people in my life." This isn't about lying or pretending everything is perfect when it's not. It's about shifting your focus from what's missing to what's present. It's about training your consciousness to recognize the abundance that already exists in your life, which then creates the capacity to receive even more. Rabbi Shimshon Pincus taught that if people would simply say the blessing, Shehakol Nihya Bidvaro, which means that all was created by his word, slowly and with genuine focus before drinking even a glass of water, no one would ever lack sustenance. Why? Because that moment of mindful gratitude connects you to the source of all abundance. It reminds you that everything comes from God, and if He provided water, He can provide everything else you need. The Talmud reinforces this principle beautifully in Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the fathers. The rabbis ask, who is a rich person? And the answer isn't someone with a certain amount of money in the bank. The answer is the one who is happy with his lot. Now, some people hear this and worry that being happy with what you have means giving up ambition, settling for less, accepting mediocrity. But that's not what this teaching means at all. It's not teaching complacency. It's teaching gratitude. It's teaching you to appreciate what you have right now while still working toward what you want. There's a fundamental difference between gratitude and complacency. Gratitude says, "I'm thankful for what I have and I'm open to receiving more." Complacency says, "This is all I'll ever have, so I might as well stop trying." One opens doors, the other closes them, and this brings us to one of the most powerful secrets in Jewish wisdom about prosperity. Your wealth isn't measured by what you accumulate. It's measured by your relationship with what you have. The Talmud offers several definitions of wealth that reveal this truth. Rabbi Meir says, a wealthy person is anyone who has pleasure or comfort in their wealth. Rabbi Akiva says a wealthy person is anyone who has a wife pleasant in actions, meaning someone who has loving, supportive relationships. These definitions tell us that wealth is first and foremost a state of consciousness, not a bank balance. But let's address the elephant in the room. What about when things genuinely aren't going well? What about when you're facing real financial struggles, health challenges, relationship problems? Doesn't it feel dishonest to say you're blessed when you're barely keeping your head above water? This is where Jewish wisdom becomes even more profound. The Talmud teaches that we must thank God for everything in life, even what we perceive as negative. There's a famous story about Rabbi Akiva that illustrates this perfectly. He was traveling with a donkey, a candle, and a rooster. When he arrived in a city looking for lodging, everyone turned him away. His response: everything God does is for the best. So he went to sleep in a field. During the night, the wind blew out his candle. Again, he said, everything God does is for the best. Then a fox killed his rooster. Same response. Then a lion ate his donkey. Each time, Rabbi Akiva maintained his faith that everything was ultimately for good. The next morning, he discovered that a band of thieves had raided the city during the night. If he had been there, he would have been robbed or worse. And if his candle had been lit, or if his rooster had crowed, or if his donkey had made noise, the thieves would have found him in the field. Everything that seemed like a setback was actually divine protection. Now, you might think this story is asking you to be naive or to pretend bad things are good. It's not. It's teaching you to trust that even in difficult circumstances, there's a larger pattern at work, opportunities hidden within challenges, and blessings you can't yet see. And here's the practical application. When you maintain this consciousness, when you speak words of faith and gratitude even during difficult times, you're not denying reality. You're refusing to let difficulty define your reality. You're keeping yourself open to possibility, rather than closing yourself off in bitterness and complaint. Because here's what happens when you complain constantly. Complaining doesn't just describe your problems. It multiplies them. It trains your brain to see everything through a negative lens. It pushes away the very people and opportunities that could help you. And spiritually, it cuts you off from the flow of divine blessing. James chapter 3 warns us that where there is envy and complaining, you find disorder and every evil practice. Think about that. Complaining literally invites chaos into your life. When you envy someone else's success, you're unconsciously telling God that you don't believe He can bless you too. This mindset doesn't attract prosperity. It repels it. So let's get practical. What are the specific words and phrases you should incorporate into your daily vocabulary to align yourself with prosperity? First, start your day with gratitude. Before you even get out of bed, speak words of thanks. The Jewish tradition begins every morning with a prayer called Modeh Ani, which means, I give thanks. You're thanking God for returning your soul to your body, for giving you another day of life. This simple practice sets the tone for abundance consciousness before your feet even hit the floor. Second, replace I'm fine with I'm blessed or I'm grateful. Make this your default response when people ask how you are. At first, it might feel awkward or unfamiliar. That's okay. You're rewiring decades of conditioning. Keep doing it. Your brain and your reality will catch up. Third, practice specific gratitude throughout the day. Jewish tradition has blessings for everything. There's a blessing before and after eating, a blessing when you see a rainbow, a blessing when you encounter a wise person, even a blessing after using the bathroom. Why so many blessings? Because the practice of constant gratitude keeps you in a state of abundance consciousness. You don't have to follow the traditional Jewish blessings exactly, although you certainly can if you choose. The principle is what matters. Pause regularly throughout your day to acknowledge blessings. Thank you for this food that nourishes my body. I'm grateful for this car that gets me where I need to go. I appreciate the technology that allows me to connect with loved ones. Fourth, speak your goals and dreams in the present tense as if they're already happening. This isn't magical thinking. It's how faith works. The Bible defines faith as the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. When you speak your desired reality with conviction, you're not lying. You're declaring what you believe God is bringing into manifestation. For example, Instead of saying, I hope to get out of debt someday, say, I am becoming debt-free. God is providing everything I need to manage my finances wisely. Instead of, I wish I could find a better job, say, I am attracting opportunities that align with my gifts and provide abundant compensation. Fifth, bless others generously with your words. Jewish wisdom teaches that when you bless others, you create a channel for blessing to flow into your own life. When you see someone succeeding, instead of feeling envious, practice saying, I'm happy for your success, and I know there's abundance for me too. The priestly blessing from the Torah, which says, May the Lord bless you and keep you, is understood to include both material and spiritual prosperity. When you pronounce blessings over others, you're actually activating the flow of divine abundance that benefits everyone, including yourself. Now let's talk about what blocks the flow of prosperity, even when you're saying the right words, because it's not just about the words themselves, it's about the consciousness behind the words. The biggest prosperity blocker is what Kabbalah calls a lack of vessel. You can speak words of abundance all day long, but if you haven't created the internal capacity to receive prosperity, it will flow right past you. It's like trying to fill a cup that has holes in the bottom. The water keeps pouring in, but it doesn't stay. So how do you create a proper vessel for abundance? First, you clear out envy, resentment, and complaining. These emotions and speech patterns create holes in your vessel. Every time you complain, you're literally draining away blessing. Every time you envy someone else's success, you're telling yourself that there isn't enough to go around, which closes you off from receiving your own portion. Second, you expand your vessel through generosity. This seems counterintuitive when you're struggling financially. How can you give when you barely have enough? But Jewish wisdom teaches that giving is what creates space to receive more. Not because you're manipulating God into blessing you, but because the act of giving transforms your consciousness from scarcity to abundance. The Kabbalah teaches that we receive in order to share. When you give, even when it's difficult, you're demonstrating faith that more is coming. You're proving to yourself and to the universe that you live in a reality of abundance, not scarcity. And that consciousness attracts more abundance. Third, you increase your capacity through study and wisdom. The Torah teaches that without sustenance, there is no spiritual wisdom. But without spiritual wisdom, there is no sustenance. Material and spiritual prosperity are interconnected. When you invest time in learning, growing, and developing wisdom, you're increasing your capacity to attract and manage greater abundance. Think about the wealthiest people in history, according to the Bible: Abraham, Joseph, Solomon. They weren't wealthy by accident. They aligned themselves with divine principles. They spoke words of faith. They practiced generosity. They sought wisdom, and prosperity flowed to them as a natural result. The Bible makes it clear that wealth isn't something you beg for. It's something you attract by building the right vessel to receive it. When you pray for money, you're often praying from a consciousness of lack, from fear rather than faith. But when you align yourself with God's principles for prosperity, gratitude, generosity, faith, wisdom, you're not begging, you're building. And what you build becomes a magnet for blessing. Let's go deeper into the power of words according to Jewish mysticism. The Sefer Yetzirah, one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts, teaches that God created the entire universe through speech. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Creation itself happened through words. This means that words aren't just sounds that describe reality. Words are creative forces that shape reality. When you speak, you're not just communicating information, you're actually creating. Every word you speak is a seed planted in the soil of consciousness, and that seed will eventually produce a harvest according to its kind. Negative words produce negative harvests. Positive, faith-filled words produce abundant harvests. It's a spiritual law as reliable as the law of gravity. The Talmud says that the early sages of Judaism were called Sophrim, which means counters, because they understood the mathematical precision of the Torah. They knew that every word, every letter, every number in the scripture had significance. The universe itself is mathematical in nature, and the Torah reflects that divine mathematics. What does this mean for your prosperity? It means that your words carry weight, measure, and consequence. There's a precision to language that most people never consider. When you casually say, "I'm broke," you're not just describing your current bank balance. You're reinforcing and perpetuating that condition. You're counting yourself into poverty. But when you say, I'm experiencing temporary financial challenges and I'm learning how to manage money more wisely, you've completely changed the equation. You've acknowledged the current reality without making it your permanent identity. You've opened the door to change. This is why the Torah emphasizes the importance of remembering and speaking God's blessings. Deuteronomy chapter 8 warns against the danger of prosperity amnesia. When you become so comfortable that you forget the source of your blessings and start thinking, my power and the might of my hand have gotten me this wealth. When you forget to acknowledge divine providence, when you take credit for everything yourself, you cut yourself off from the ongoing flow of blessing. Not because God is petty or easily offended, but because gratitude is the channel through which abundance flows. When you stop being grateful, you've closed the channel. This is why regular, specific gratitude is so crucial. Not just feeling thankful, but speaking it out loud, putting it into words, because words make things real. Words create vessels. Words activate flow. Now let's address a question many people have. If God wants to bless me, why do I have to say the right words? Doesn't that make prosperity into some kind of spiritual transaction where I'm manipulating God with the correct formulas? This is a misunderstanding of how divine blessing works. God's will is to bless. The flow of Shefa, divine abundance, is constant and available. But you have free will, and part of that free will includes your consciousness, your thoughts, and your speech. God doesn't withhold blessing because you said the wrong words. But the words you speak reflect and shape your consciousness. And your consciousness determines what you're capable of receiving. It's not about earning God's favor. It's about aligning yourself with the flow that's already available. Think of it like sunlight. The sun shines on everyone equally. But if you build a house without windows, you won't receive the light. Not because the sun has rejected you, but because you haven't created an opening for the light to enter. Your words, your gratitude, your faith consciousness, these are the windows that allow divine abundance to flow into your life. The Kabbalah describes this as the principle of upper and lower waters. There's a flow from above, from the divine realm, that's always available, but there must also be an arousal from below, from the human realm, to draw that flow downward. Your words of gratitude and faith are that arousal from below. They create a circuit, a connection, a channel through which blessing can flow. Let's make this even more practical with a daily practice you can start immediately. Morning practice. Before you get out of bed, place your hand on your heart and say, I give thanks for another day of life. I give thanks for the breath in my lungs and the beating of my heart. I am blessed and I am a blessing. Throughout the day, every time you eat or drink something, pause for just 3 seconds before consuming it. Say thank you for this nourishment. Do it slowly, mean it. Let yourself feel genuine appreciation that there is food available to you. Remember Rabbi Pincus's teaching that this simple practice of mindful blessing ensures you never lack sustenance. When challenges arise, instead of immediately complaining or panicking, train yourself to say everything God does is for the best. I may not see the purpose yet, but I trust there's a blessing hidden in this situation. Again, this isn't denial. It's faith. It's keeping yourself open to possibility rather than shutting down in fear. When you see others succeeding, combat envy immediately by saying, I celebrate your success. There is abundance for all of us. What God has done for you, He can do for me. This practice is incredibly powerful. It removes the scarcity mindset that says someone else's blessing diminishes your own. Before bed, take 2 minutes to review your day and speak gratitude for 3 specific things. Not generic gratitude, but specific. I'm grateful for the conversation I had with my daughter today. I'm thankful that my car started without problems. I appreciate the moment of peace I felt while drinking my morning coffee. This practice trains your brain to actively search for blessings throughout the day. And what you look for, you find. The more you train yourself to notice blessings, the more blessings you'll notice. It's not that more blessings suddenly appear. It's that you've opened your eyes to see what was always there. Now let's talk about the connection between gratitude and action. Because some people misunderstand abundance consciousness and think it means sitting around being grateful while doing nothing practical about their circumstances. That's not what Jewish wisdom teaches at all. Judaism is a religion of action. Pirkei Avot teaches, it is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it. You're required to take action, to do your part, to work with what you've been given. But you're also required to acknowledge that your efforts alone are not sufficient. You need divine blessing. This creates a beautiful balance. You work hard, you use your talents, you make wise decisions, you take responsibility, but you also pray, you give thanks, you acknowledge God's role in your success. You hold both truths simultaneously. Your actions matter, and God's blessing matters. The Talmud teaches that money is what stands a person on their feet. Wealth, properly understood and used, is a means of serving God. It's not evil or purely materialistic to desire prosperity. It's actually a spiritual goal. As long as you understand that the purpose of receiving abundance is to have the capacity to give, to bless others, to support righteous causes. This is the Jewish law of attraction, if you want to call it that. But it's not the modern New Age version, where you just think positive thoughts and money magically appears. The Jewish version requires spiritual alignment, conscious speech, generous action, and trust in divine providence working together. There's a story about a Chabad rabbi that illustrates this perfectly. He met someone who was intelligent, educated, went to the best schools, but despite all those advantages, nothing in his life was working financially. On the other hand, the rabbi knew people who weren't particularly educated or intelligent by worldly standards, but they had what he called a bracha, a blessing, and everything they touched prospered. What's the difference? The difference is alignment. The difference is consciousness. The difference is recognizing that all success comes from God, that you need divine blessing, that your intelligence and effort alone are not sufficient. This is why saying "I'm fine" is so dangerous. When you say those words, you're declaring self-sufficiency. You're saying, "I've got this handled on my own." And in that moment, you've cut yourself off from divine partnership. You've closed the channel of blessing because you've declared you don't need it. But when you say, "I'm blessed," or "I'm grateful," or even, "I'm learning to trust God more each day," you're acknowledging dependence on something greater than yourself. You're opening the channel. You're creating space for divine involvement in your circumstances. Let's address some common objections and questions at this point. Objection 1. This sounds like toxic positivity. Are you saying I should just ignore my problems and pretend everything is wonderful? No, that's not what this teaching says at all. You can acknowledge challenges while still maintaining a foundation of gratitude and faith. There's a difference between denial and faith. Denial says there's no problem. Faith says there is a problem and I trust that God will provide a solution. In the meantime, I'm grateful for what's working in my life. You can feel your feelings. You can be sad, angry, frustrated, or afraid. The Jewish tradition honors the full range of human emotion. The Psalms are filled with cries of distress and confusion. But even in the Psalms, there's always a turn toward trust, toward remembering God's faithfulness, toward choosing hope over despair. Objection 2. I tried positive affirmations before and nothing changed. Why should this be different? The difference is integration. Many people repeat affirmations while still carrying a core belief system of scarcity and unworthiness. It's like putting a fresh coat of paint on a house with a cracked foundation. The problem isn't the paint, it's the foundation. Jewish wisdom addresses the foundation. It's not just about saying words. It's about understanding the spiritual reality behind the words. It's about recognizing God as the source of all abundance. It's about expressing genuine gratitude. It's about taking generous action. It's about building a complete vessel for prosperity. Not just repeating positive phrases. Also, there's often a difference between biblical affirmations rooted in spiritual truth and generic positive thinking. When you affirm, "God's plans are to prosper me and not to harm me," you're not just expressing wishful thinking. You're declaring what Scripture says about God's character and intentions. You're aligning your consciousness with divine revelation. Objection 3. I'm not Jewish. Does this wisdom still apply to me? Absolutely. These are universal spiritual principles. While the specific practices and language come from Jewish tradition, the underlying truths apply to all people. God's abundance isn't restricted to one group. Divine principles work for anyone who applies them, regardless of religious background. The Bible makes it clear that Abraham became a blessing to all nations, not just to his own descendants. The wisdom of Torah, which means instruction or teaching, was given as a light to all peoples. These principles of gratitude, faith, generosity, and the power of words are human principles, spiritual principles that transcend any single tradition. Let's go even deeper into practical application. How do you maintain abundance consciousness when your circumstances seem to contradict everything you're declaring? This is where faith becomes real. It's easy to be grateful when everything is going well. The real test comes when you're facing financial pressure. When the bills are due and you don't know how you'll pay them, when you've lost your job or your business is struggling. In those moments, you have a choice. You can spiral into panic and complaint, which closes you off from creative solutions and divine intervention. Or you can hold on to faith and gratitude, which keeps you open to possibilities you can't yet see. This doesn't mean you ignore practical responsibilities. You still need to make phone calls, send resumes, negotiate payment plans, seek advice, take action. But you do all of that from a foundation of trust rather than panic, from abundance consciousness rather than scarcity consciousness. And here's what often happens. When you maintain that consciousness of trust and gratitude, even in difficulty, you start noticing opportunities and resources you didn't see before. Someone mentions a job opening. An unexpected check arrives in the mail. A creative solution to your problem suddenly becomes clear. It's not magic. It's that your consciousness, shaped by your words and thoughts, determines what you're capable of perceiving and receiving. The Kabbalah teaches that there are always infinite possibilities available in every moment. But your consciousness determines which possibilities you can access. When you're in panic mode, you can only see disaster and limitation. When you're in faith mode, you can see opportunities and solutions. Same objective circumstances, completely different experience. This is the real meaning of changing your words changes your life. Your words shape your consciousness, and your consciousness determines your experience of reality. Now, one more crucial piece of Jewish wisdom about prosperity: the importance of speaking blessings over your future. In Genesis, we see the power of patriarchal blessings. Isaac blessed Jacob, and that blessing determined Jacob's future prosperity and destiny. Jacob blessed his 12 sons, and those blessings shaped the future of 12 tribes. These weren't just nice sentiments. They were creative declarations that set spiritual and material forces in motion. You have the same authority to speak blessings over your own future and the future of your loved ones. This isn't presumption. It's exercising the creative power God gave to human beings when He created us in His image. Try this practice. Once a week, set aside time to speak blessings over different areas of your life. Not complaints about what's wrong, not worries about what might go wrong, but declarations of what you're calling into being. For your finances, I bless my work with productivity and excellence. I bless my income with increase. I bless my spending with wisdom. I bless my giving with generosity. I trust God to provide everything I need. For your relationships, I bless my family with peace and love. I bless my friendships with depth and loyalty. I bless my community with unity and purpose. For your health, I bless my body with strength and vitality. I bless my mind with clarity and wisdom. I bless my spirit with peace and joy. For your purpose, I bless my work with meaning and impact. I bless my gifts with opportunity to serve. I bless my legacy with lasting significance. Notice the structure of these blessings. They're specific, they're stated in the present tense, and they acknowledge God's role while also taking personal responsibility. As we come toward the end of this teaching, let's bring it all together into a practical framework you can implement immediately. The Prosperity Consciousness Framework has 5 daily elements. Element 1. Morning gratitude. Start every day acknowledging blessings before acknowledging problems. This sets your consciousness in abundance mode from the first moments of your day. Element 2. Mindful blessings. Throughout the day, pause to acknowledge blessings over food, water, and ordinary activities. These micro moments of gratitude keep you connected to abundance consciousness all day long. Element 3. Faith declarations. When challenges arise, immediately speak words of faith and trust. Everything God does is for the best. There's a blessing hidden in this situation. I trust divine provision. Element 4. Generous action. Give something every day, even when it's difficult. This could be money, time, attention, encouragement, or help. The act of giving expands your vessel and demonstrates abundance consciousness. Element 5. Evening review. End each day by reviewing and speaking gratitude for 3 specific blessings. This trains your brain to actively search for good throughout the day. If you implement these 5 elements consistently for 30 days, you will notice a shift in your consciousness, and that shift in consciousness will begin to manifest as shifts in your circumstances. But I want to be clear about expectations. This isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. This isn't a guarantee that you'll win the lottery or receive a miraculous windfall. What it is a process of alignment with divine principles that govern prosperity. As you align yourself with these principles, through your words, thoughts, and actions, you create the conditions for blessing to flow into your life. That blessing may come through new opportunities at work, through wisdom in managing your current resources, through relationships that open doors, through creativity that solves problems, or through direct divine provision in unexpected ways. The form is unpredictable, but the principle is reliable. Like attracts like. Gratitude creates a magnet for blessing. Faith opens channels that fear closes. Words shape consciousness, and consciousness shapes experience. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, right now, make a decision to stop saying I'm fine and start saying I'm blessed. Every single time someone asks how you are, respond with gratitude. At first, it will feel strange. People might even react with surprise. That's okay. You're not doing this to impress people. You're doing this to rewire your consciousness and align yourself with abundance. And here's what I predict will happen. Within a few days, you'll start noticing blessings you previously overlooked. Within a few weeks, you'll feel a shift in your overall outlook. Less anxiety, more peace, greater hope. Within a few months, you'll start seeing tangible changes in your circumstances. New opportunities, improved relationships, increased resources. Not because you've manipulated the universe with magic words, but because you've aligned yourself with spiritual principles that have governed prosperity for thousands of years. The ancient Jewish sages understood something that most people today have forgotten. Words aren't just sounds. Words are seeds. Words are forces. Words are creative power. And the words you speak over your life today are creating the reality you'll experience tomorrow. So stop declaring mediocrity with I'm fine. Start declaring blessing with I'm grateful. Stop focusing on lack with complaints. Start focusing on abundance with praise. Stop speaking your current limitations. Start speaking your future possibilities. This is the wisdom that made Abraham, Joseph, and Solomon the wealthiest men of their generations. This is the principle that has sustained the Jewish people through millennia of challenge and difficulty. And this is the secret that can transform your financial reality if you have the faith and discipline to apply it consistently. Your prosperity isn't determined by your circumstances, your education, your connections, or your current bank balance. Your prosperity is determined by your consciousness, by the words you speak, by the gratitude you express, and by your alignment with divine principles of abundance. Everything you need is available. The flow of divine blessing never stops. The question isn't whether God wants to bless you. The question is whether you're creating a vessel to receive the blessing. And that vessel is built with words. Words of gratitude, words of faith, words of blessing. Words spoken with intention, consciousness, and trust in the source of all abundance. So starting today, choose your words carefully. Choose them consciously. Choose them with the understanding that they're not just describing your reality, they're creating it. Stop saying, I'm fine. Start saying, I'm blessed, and watch how your life transforms when you align your words with the ancient wisdom that has governed prosperity since the beginning of creation. This isn't just Jewish wisdom. This is human wisdom. This isn't just ancient teaching. This is timeless truth. And it's available to you right now in this moment. If you're willing to change your words and transform your consciousness, the choice is yours. The power is in your mouth, and the prosperity you seek is waiting for you to create the vessel to receive it. Thank you for taking this journey into ancient wisdom that's more relevant today than ever before. May you be blessed with abundance, prosperity, and the consciousness to receive and steward it with wisdom and generosity.